And we back with the hidden history of the Caucasian race that we were never taught in school. Making Another White Man by Paul Laurence Guthrie. Can y'all see that? Yeah, we're gonna pick up where we left off from. Brief summary. To backtrack where we left off. Remember, they was in the caves. They came out causing disruption. They came out causing all type of chaos amongst the original people that was living a peaceful life. Remember, when they came out the caves, they started a divide and conquer tactic. See, the book elaborates on, was it a natural disaster that caused these people to fall? What was it? But it goes into that it was these cave dwelling people that came from the Caucasus Mountains 2,000 years after they had been in there in the caves, and then they came out and started this chaos. Now, let's pick up where we left off from, y'all. Just had to give y'all the previous of what already had occurred in the book thus far. All right, in India, Mohenjo-Daro was sacked and its people were enslaved or killed. The outcome was the same for those of Mesopotamia and Egypt too. The extent to which the nomadic tribes overran and subjugated civilizations is echoed in the writings of Immanuel Velikovsky, who described what the Caucasian Pinkish Pale people did in Egypt by saying a cruel conqueror invaded the once mighty realm. Now overthrown and prostrate, he subjugated it without meeting resistance. He desecrated its sacred places. He raped its surviving women, enslaved and decimated, the population. Enslaved the decimated population. He utterly destroyed the temples. If any remained erect, robbed the sepulchres of the dead, and mutilated the victims who remained alive. Ancient accounts, some of which were written by the Egyptians themselves, clearly illustrate the gloom into which the ancient societies had fallen. Such eyewitnesses accounts demonstrate how the Caucasian Pinkish Pale people came in and violently usurped the ancient culture by turning the wealth and sophistication of those civilizations into his own. One such document, the Adamations of Ipuwer, was written in Egypt right after the Caucasian had gained control over the land. The accounts describe the invading nomads as cruel and cultureless barbarians who forced their way into Egypt, beat up the population, and stripped the original inhabitants of their possessions.
White folks come out of a hostile climatology. Cold, nothing, no vegetation, no animals, no clean drinking water. He evolved in a hostile environment, which hardened him. So he don't have compassion for people. Because he grew in a context, in a climate where being compassionate may have cost him his dinner. May have cost him his life. See, in the Ice Age, it wasn't enough to go around, so they had to steal and manipulate. You understand? So he grew aggressive. He grew angry. He became a manipulator, a controller. The reason he has to control everything is the only way for him to feel secure. Remember, he's a numerical minority. He's a numerical minority. In order to feel safe, you have to he has OCD. The white man has obsessive compulsive disorder. He also has paranoid personality disorder. He also has narcissistic personality disorder. Christopher Columbus didn't discover America, but because nothing existed until the white man found it, that's the narcissism. That's the narcissism. I'm gonna wipe out the entire history of America, and I'm going to start it in 1492. How can you do that? Because nobody matters but me and people who look like me. That's it. That's it. This is who he is. It is his biopsychoclimatology. It is the need to control everything in order to feel secure. And it grew out of his experience with nature during the Ice Age, where he had to cut, where he had to manipulate, he had to fight, he had to defend constantly, he had to lie, steal, cheat. That's what was needed in order for him to survive the Ice Age. And so they now simply employ those skills that allowed them to survive the Ice Age, and they use those same set of skills to dominate the entire planet.
Regarding these matters, the Adamations of Ipuwer reads, Barbarians from outside have come to Egypt. The children of nobles are dashed against the walls. The storehouse is stripped bare. Its keeper is stretched out on the ground. Behold, now something has been done which has never happened. He who never slept on a plank is now the owner of the bed. You hear that? Behold, the owners of robes are now in rags. Damn. But he who never wove for himself is now the owner of fine linen. Behold, she who once looked at her face in the water is now the owner of a mirror. So we talking about cave dwellers coming into places of royalty and palaces and places of fine furniture and of deluxe. Now they're in this position. Y'all see what's happening? Can you see a good image of what took place? Now, continuing on. In Samaria, the facts present a similar picture. Fragments from one Sumerian account tells of the destruction of the city of Ur and reads in part, the population laments bitterly the catastrophe which has taken over the city. The city lies in ruins. In India, the conquering herd, known as the Aryans, came down from the hills and pillaged the peaceful farming communities of northern India. Indian Gods and Kings by E. Hawkridge tells all about what happened. On page 10, Hawkridge explains at the northeast corner, there was a break in the mountain wall. Down upon the Dravidians forming in the north came sudden surprising attacks from ruddy tribes. Through the streets of Mohenjo-Daro, the Caucasian ran wild, robbing, taking people's ass, and slaughtering who dared to stand in his way. Modern archaeologists have uncovered evidence which shows that in Mohenjo-Daro, even the women and children were beaten to death. As historian H.G. Rawlinson pointed out, Mohenjo-Daro was sacked and its inhabitants put to the sword. Groups of skeletons, including women and children, have been found, some in a large room, others at the foot of a staircase leading down to a well, and others again in a street. Their contorted attitudes suggest that they met a violent death. All this from these cave dwelling ass motherfuckers. The criminal mindset started in the caves. Remember, there was no laws, no rules, no regulations. It was kill or be killed. It was anything goes. It was, hey, survive or die. Survival of the fittest. Literally, that's what survival of the fittest came from. The cave dwellers. If you ask me. Let's not forget, when they was in the caves, they befriended the dog. And why is it that they call, if you turn God backwards, it's dog? Because the dog protected them when they was in the caves, y'all. It was like a god to them. Anyway, let's keep it pushing. And remember, before I keep it pushing, during slavery in America, in servitude slavery of the indigenous people, remember, the dog could eat from the table, and the indigenous people could not. They ate out back in a kennel, like animals, like livestock. Anyway, let's keep it pushing. For all practical purposes, the arrival of the Caucasians signaled the end of civilization as it once existed. Goddamn. Now we're looking at the fall of the original inhabitants of the planet. All because of a mad scientist. Some people don't say he's mad, but I'm going to say he's mad. We're talking about in the book of Habakkuk where it say God came from T-Man. In the Holy One from Mount Paran, where this God that came from T-Man is Yaqub, the father of the Caucasians. In the Holy One from Mount Paran is supposedly Wallace Farad Muhammad, according to Elijah Muhammad. Now, we're going to keep it pushing. Along with the invasions came a new style of life. In India, the Aryans set up a social order based on skin color. See, let me keep it pushing. Called the caste system. Now, let me bring it to y'all. They set up something. They set up a social order based on skin color. See, we, the indigenous people, never did no shit based on skin color. We never did go around changing skin color, making deities other than what they were. This was started by the Caucasian cave dwellers. They started that shit. They changed the image of Yeshua in the Bible. They changed the image of all the original gods. Every original god is bronze skin, copper color. so-called black, all of them, every last one. Not one ain't exempt, probably except Osiris, that's it. He green. But the majority, about 99% of them, is indigenous looking. But see, they started that shit, changing skin tones, and they did this to suit their white supremacy mindset. So we see they set up a caste system, right? Now, according to that system, the Caucasian pinkish pale people were the rulers, and the darker skinned Dravidians turned into slaves and outcasts. They did this shit in Europe, just like, I mean, not Europe, but they did this shit in America, just like they did in India. Now, in Egypt and Mesopotamia, the priests were turned into slaves, and the other dark-skinned persons were regulated to menial positions or were pushed back away from the areas of trade and commerce. So they've been doing this shit for years. Again, they did it in India, and they also did it in America. Based everything on skin color. The new way of life was drastically different from anything that had existed before. It was the beginning of the Caucasian pinkish pale people's rise to power.